Three. Back. I'm gonna give this to Jeff and then I will get started.
And what Luca is going to show here, a video that we produced related to the Gold Canyon water resources, called water journey.
Water. We all drink it every day. Use it to water our lawns and in our businesses. Securing water infrastructure in the beautiful Superstition region is what allowed Gold Canyon to begin development in the 1970s. Have you ever wondered where the water in Gold Canyon comes from? How it gets from the Colorado River to aquifers hundreds of feet in the ground, then to our faucets, or how it's treated to ensure we all have safe, quality drinking water. This is the water journey. From the source to the top. Arizona Water Company has been a water provider in Gold Canyon since the start of the community. The company goes to great lengths to pump, test, treat, and deliver water to residents in Gold Canyon. There are 3 sources of water for Gold Canyon: groundwater, water from the Colorado River, called Central Arizona Project or CAP water, and effluent. The potable drinking water in Gold Canyon comes from underground aquifers and is produced from wells. The water from wells is either groundwater or recovered CAP water, which can be covered in more depth later. All of the company's wells are located west of Gold Canyon. The system has a total production capacity of 16 million gallons per day if needed. Once the water is pumped from the ground, it is treated at the oasis or baseline water treatment facilities that treats the water to comply with the drinking water standards managed by the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. To ensure compliance with these standards, samples are taken daily by AWC operations staff. Once treated, the water is stored in storage tanks before being pumped through the distribution system pipelines to customers in Gold Canyon. Excess water is stored in 3 storage tanks in Gold Canyon, with a total storage capacity of 3.5 million gallons. In addition to using groundwater, Gold Canyon also uses water from the CAP. CAP water is used in 2 ways. The first involves AWC delivering CAP water to agricultural irrigation districts, and in exchange for this water, the districts agree not to pump groundwater. This CAP water is considered recovered CAP water. The irrigation districts AWC works with are the Queen Creek Irrigation District, the New Magma Irrigation and Drainage District, and the Roosevelt Water Conservation District. The second use of CAP in Gold Canyon involves delivering water to golf courses for watering of landscaping and greens, rather than pumping groundwater. The golf courses that receive CAP water from AWC are Mountain Brook Golf Club, Superstition Golf and Country Club, and Gold Canyon Resort and Spa. The final source of water for Gold Canyon is effluent water. Effluent is wastewater treated to a high quality. Through a contract between Liberty Utilities and AWC, effluent is made available for AWC to provide to golf courses in Gold Canyon. Arizona Water Company takes pride in providing not only high-quality water to the residents and businesses in Gold Canyon, but also for being good stewards of its water resources. And that includes having diverse water supplies for the area. The water Gold Canyon residents and businesses receive has a long and complex journey to get from the source to the top. So let's all do our part to conserve, because water is more precious than gold.
So I'll be talking about a lot of those things that were listed up there. But let me start by introducing myself, give you a little background on me. I've been in the water resource industry for 25 years. Joined Arizona Water Company in early 2022. Prior to that, I spent 10 years at the Arizona Department of Water Resources in 3 different positions, one in the adjudication section, one in Colorado River Management, and then I was an assistant director in charge of the hydrology division. Prior to that, I spent about 15 years in private consulting, working on water resource issues across the state. So got a lot of background in water resources for the state. And I want to thank you all for coming. This is a great turnout. Thank you very much. So let's get rolling. So what I want to start with first, this is a map of the Far East Valley. And the area of blue that you see there is Arizona Water Company's Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, or CCN. And that's basically the area that we have been licensed to serve through the Arizona Corporation Commission. And this area is called our superficial water system. It stretches from Apache Junction all to Superior. And here we've just overlaid the city boundaries on top of our CCN to show what communities are in the area or the ones that we serve. And as you can see, there is the Gold Canyon area is within our CCN. So if you zoom into the Gold Canyon area, this is the blue lines represent our distribution mains. The green circle looking objects are our water tanks. And there you can see our average annual demand is 1,872 acre feet. I'll explain what acre feet represents momentarily. About all of the service area, over 100 miles of pipeline. Again, 3 storage tanks. Over 7,000 connections, and our system goes back to 1979. So here, some terms and units of measure that I want to point out. The first is acre foot. An acre foot of water represents 325,851 gallons. A lot of water. It's enough to basically cover a football field 1 foot deep. Can you advance? There you go. Keep going. Excuse me. So then 1 million gallons is a little over 3 acre feet. So as the units that we do a lot of water resource planning and management, we use the unit of acre feet. So you'll be hearing that a lot. Whoop. And then if you look at a flow rate of 1 million gallons per day, and do that for a full year, we equal 1,120 acre feet. The next unit of measure in term that's used a lot in water resources, gallons per day per capita for GPCD. GPCD there are estimated values of this that can be generally calculated. It's basically, in a nutshell, the volume of water divided into the number of people. So there are different sources around the state that estimate the GPCD, and you can see it there ranges from roughly 116 to 145. So that means 116 to 145 gallons per day per use per person. And the estimated GPCD use for Gold Canyon is about 127. So next, we're going to talk about the Arizona resources and regulation. Okay. And I'm going to start on a statewide basis. These values up here represent the state, their estimates that were prepared by the Arizona Department of Water Resources for the year 2020. On the upper left, that is the use categories. 72% used by agriculture, 22% municipal use, which would be such as water we provide through to you through our system, and industrial use is 6%. Then the supplies, what supplies meet those uses? The largest is groundwater at 41%. Next is Colorado River water. That's used both through the CAP that I'll talk about and on the Colorado River in Arizona. In-state rivers at 18%, and reclaimed water, which is another term for effluent, is about 5%. So first thing I'll start out with is the difference between groundwater and surface water. Groundwater is what you find under the surface in between in the pore space of subsurface materials, gravel, sand, clay, silts. You can also find it in fractured bedrock in mountains, like in the superstitions. If you drill down through there, you would hit fractures that would contain water. Surface water, just like the name says, water you find above ground in lakes, streams, water, etc. And the reason we point this out is Arizona has a bifurcated management system. Groundwater is managed separately and differently than surface water. Surface water in the state of Arizona is regulated and managed by the doctrine of prior appropriation, first in time, first in right. Whoever uses that water first has a senior right to somebody that uses it afterwards. That's for surface water. And that relates to in-stream rivers in the state of Arizona. The Colorado is different, and we'll explain that later. Then groundwater is managed overall by the reasonable use doctrine. What that basically means is you are able to use water beneath your property as long as you're not wasting. Caveat of groundwater is that there are parts of the state that have additional regulations, statutes, and policies that overlie that reasonable use doctrine. So when we talk about surface water, there are basically two types: Colorado River water and in-state streams like the Gila, Salt, and Verde rivers. Then how that relates in the state of Arizona is there's a process called general stream adjudications. As I mentioned, I worked in the adjudication section for AWR. What that basically is a judicial proceeding to determine the extent or amount of water and the priority of water, of the water right. And what I say up there is that it does not relate to percolating groundwater. It's related to surface water and something called subflow. That's too detailed to get into tonight, but essentially it relates to surface water. On the groundwater side, there was landmark legislation passed in 1980 called the Groundwater Management Act, or it's known as the Code. And one of the major things it did was establish the Arizona Department of Water Resources. So AEWR, as it's called, has only been around since 1980. Prior to that, there were other types of management in the state, the Water Commission, State Land Department, but AEWR, which is what regulates water use in the state now, did not come into this until 1980. Another part of the code or the Groundwater Management Act is the established active management areas. Those were areas of the state that are generally populated and that had high water use. And because there was significant overdraft or excessive pumping, the Groundwater Management Act identified the areas that would have additional regulation and oversight. These AMAs were based on groundwater basins. They're not based on political subdivisions like a city, town, or county. So they do not match up with any local jurisdictions. They are based on groundwater basins, which basically is you try to take the mountains, and if you had mountains all around, everything inside the mountains, if there was a drop of water on the top of the mountain, it would flow into the basin. Those are how they were created. Their purpose was to address that overdraft, excessive groundwater pumping, and they established groundwater rights for municipal, industrial, and agricultural uses to control the amount of groundwater pumping in these areas. So one thing that may be confusing to people is that you all live in Canal County, but you are in the Phoenix Active Management Area. So I know there can be a lot of confusion with that. You can see the gold star there that shows the approximate location. That dark green area that is within is the Phoenix Active Management Area. You can see the county boundary around there, so. I know that can be confusing. What happens in Pinal County doesn't relate to the Phoenix, I'm sorry, let me restate that. What the county operations may be different than what the Phoenix Active Management Area happens in that area. South of the Phoenix Active Management Area is the Pinal AMA. And south of that is the Tucson AMA, below that is Santa Cruz. To the north, there's an AMA around Prescott. And just in December, the voters passed a law to create the Douglas IMA in Cochise County. AWR has a nice interactive dashboard that tracks supply and demand within these AMAs. There's a website up there. I know can't read this, but what it basically shows on that top graph is the municipal use between 1985 and about 2020. But you can see how it's increased over the years. That bottom graph depicts the sources of supply: Colorado River, effluent, groundwater, and surface water. I encourage you, if you want to see how much water is used within the AMAs, you can go to this page and look at that. The Groundwater Management Act also created the Assured and Adequate Water Supply Program. There are seven criteria that make up this program. I won't run through them all. I'll hit on the top one, the physical availability. That is the requirement that to subdivide property according to state law, more than 5 parcels. A developer has to prove a 100-year physical supply of water. If it's groundwater, they have to produce a model that shows with all the demands and all the uses over 100 years, that the depth of water will not go below a certain level, and that all the demands can be met and satisfied. There's also the legal availability, continuous availability. Those are all, again, have to be proven for 100 years. Their water quality, financial capability issues as well. All right, go ahead. So now we'll talk briefly about the sources of supply that I've mentioned in the video: groundwater, Colorado River water through the CAP, and effluent. These are the sources of supply that are used here in Gold Canyon and our superstition system. I've already talked about what groundwater is and how it's retrieved. It's through well pumping. Water has to meet drinking water quality standards. We take samples daily, and we have on our website consumer confidence reports that provide water quality data for our superstition system, which includes Gold Canyon. Next supply is the Colorado River water through the Central Arizona Project. Central Arizona Project is a 336-mile-long canal, siphons, pipelines that goes from Lake Havasu all the way down to Tucson. They can deliver and put through about 1.6 million acre feet a year through the CAP system. So Arizona Water Company has a subcontract from CAP to use that water, and our volume has been contracted by Arizona Water Company is 6,285 acre feet per year. And the way it gets delivered right now is through 2 turnout, Apache Creek, and Superstition. So then how do we use the CAP water? As explained in the video, 2 ways. One is it's directly delivered to the golf courses that are listed up there. They have those turnouts and it goes right to the golf courses where it is used. The second is called inert storage and recovery. And what that basically means is our CAP water goes to the irrigation districts that are listed up there. And it is used to irrigate crops. Then Arizona Water Company has the right to recover that CAP water by pumping it out of the ground. And what this produces as far as benefits is that the raw CAP water is delivered to the golf courses in lieu of pumping groundwater to irrigate the golf courses, which protects the aquifer and leaves more water in the aquifer. And then the same with the annual storage and recovery. Instead of the irrigation district pumping groundwater, us pumping groundwater, the irrigation districts use the CAP water, and then we recover a like amount of water from the aquifer. And this is just a map. You can see our superficial growth area outlined in light blue. And then to the left, you'll see some different odd green colored shapes. The light green that runs north-south on the far left side of the screen is the Roosevelt Water Conservation District. That is where our CAP water has been going in the past. The dark green in the lower left is Queen Creek Irrigation District. And to the southeast of that is the New Magnet. So all those are irrigation districts that we can send our CAP water to for them to utilize. Effluent, the third supply. Again, as stated in the video, it's wastewater that's treated to certain water quality standards for the end determined by the end use. If you want to irrigate crops, it needs a higher quality than if you are just discharging it to the land surface. So there are different levels, A+, B, B+, depends on the type of treatment, but there are different qualities, and depending on how it's used, determines what quality to be treated to. So Arizona Water Company is not the effluent provider for Gold Canyon, that is Liberty. They're responsible for treating the effluent or the wastewater and producing the effluent. And when they treat it and they will then deliver it for use on those facilities, Gold Canyon RV Resort, Mountain Brook Golf, and Cooper Fishing Golf. And again, the benefit of this, using effluent, reduces the need to use groundwater, which again is a benefit to the aquifer. So here is a summary of the types of supplies and the volumes that are used in Gold Canyon for the year 2021. I'll start at the top in the purple. The thin slice is effluent, and 170 is 170 acre feet. That represents 4% of the total use for the year, which is 4,489 acre feet. Recovered CAP water is the blue piece of the pie, 670 or 667 acre feet, about 15% of the total. Groundwater, straight groundwater is 1,205 acre feet or 27%. And then the CAP water that goes to the golf courses is 2,447 acre feet, about 54% of the total use of Gold Canyon. So with that, we'll stop here and Lucas can take the questions.
Yeah, so we just wanted to take a brief little break and take maybe 3 or 4 questions only over the material that we've already covered. I know that there's probably a lot of willingness to learn or eagerness to learn about what's going on with the Colorado River and the Tri-Cities on the river. We'll cover that after this. So any questions about the material that we've covered so far? Sure.
I saw in that last graph, there was raw Colorado water and recovery.
Yes, so Jeff, can you clarify the difference between raw CAP water and recovered CAP?
So the raw CAP water is water that is taken directly out of the canal and delivered to the golf course. Recovered CAP water is the water that goes to the irrigation districts that's used by them. And then we pump out the recovered CAP water. It's a legal distinction that the water that goes to those irrigation districts is CAP water, so when you pump it out, it's recovering that supply
From an aquifer,
from an aquifer, yes.
and so what's the recharge ratio of providing water? And how much of it actually ends up in the aquifer?
So when we deliver an acre foot to the irrigation district, we recover 1 acre foot. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio, but the benefit is we are not, the golf or the irrigation districts are not pumping. And us pumping. We're recovering one pumping, we're the ones pumping and recovering the CAP water. The irrigation districts are not using groundwater to irrigate the crop, they're using the CAP water.
So a reduction in pumping, I understand, but is there any analysis done? To see how much, if 1 acre foot of water provided for irrigation nets out, so that 1 acre foot actually being available in the aquifer?
Well, yeah, so I think what you're referring to is how much water goes past the crops is not
Yeah.
consumed, it goes back to the aquifer. Depends on the irrigation method, but if you use flood irrigation, rough numbers are 30 to 35% goes into past the root zone. If you use drip, it's in the 10 to 15%. So that's an ancillary benefit of using the CAP water that not all of it's consumed, some of it does recharge the aquifer.
But a small percent, not 1-to-1. You can take 1 acre foot out, but it's not actually putting the acre foot in.
It's not like just doing recharge where you put water into a infiltration pond and let it soak in. It's not that.
Yeah,
This guarantee by builders to ensure 100 years worth of water supply to the community. How confident can we be with those guarantees? We've probably read about this issue with some of these larger farms drilling deeper into the rivers and drying up walls of neighboring farms and so forth. What assurances do we have that this is going to be a problem in the future? And especially when we're talking about this superstition, this subdivision down here.
So I'm assuming you're related to groundwater. So if groundwater is the supply,
Yeah.
how do we know that there's a 100-year supply? So I think I mentioned that if you're relying on groundwater, you have to produce a groundwater model. And essentially what I'm going to say is that's the best technology that no one can predict 100 years what every little detail what's going to happen. So a model is the best scientifically available tool to use to project what will happen. But the proving of a 100-year supply, as I mentioned, it doesn't mean that the water level may not decline. There are limits to how far that can go down. In the Phoenix Active Management Area, the maximum depth of groundwater after 100 years of pumping cannot exceed 1,000 feet below land surface. So if a model, they run a groundwater model and it shows that after 100 years of pumping for their subdivision and all the other uses around will take the water level to 1,100 feet, they would not be able to prove the 100-year supply. Also, if all the demands over 100 years can't be met, that also would prevent the certificate or the assured water supply from being issued. So I guess I would just sum it up as they're using the best science available. That's groundwater modeling, and that's what they're basing those decisions on. And I'll just mention, when we talk about the Pinal AMA and the Phoenix AMA, and Pinal AMA, the Arizona Department of Water Resources has determined their model did not that the demands could not all be met. And so they were not approving insured water supply determination. Now, that may change, and models have a lot of inputs, so you can work with models.
It's the best man.
Yeah.
What's your present depth of groundwater today?
At our well. Or in the Phoenix Aquifer Management area. In the Phoenix Aquifer Management area, what's the current level?
Oh, where are James?
So our wells, it kind of varies depending on what pool you're talking about, but in general, I would say about. Like you said, we can pump about 16 million gallons.
If needed.
Yeah. Got plenty of capacity.
And as a reminder, James is the assistant division manager of the superstition area, so he works directly with operating and managing this area. Okay, I think we have time for one more question and we're gonna move on.
What sort of security measures are in place to protect the current tanks from terrorist activity, and are the security measures being beefed up and improved?
Ooh, I think that's.
Well, yeah, that's out of my area. James to do that.
So I guess. Because it is a security issue, I'm not going into great detail, but all the sites are secured, gated or locked, barbed wire, and they are checked daily.
But does anybody with a bolt cutter get to that gate?
If somebody wants to get in, they can get in. It's like any place else. If somebody wants to get in. They can get in.
But I will say that the team that manages the superstition system has a SCADA program, which actively manages and monitors all the tanks, all the pumps, and there's always an employee working 24/7 to monitor that system and make sure that if something fails, if a tank goes down or a well isn't operating or a pump fails, that the operator will go on and basically enact redundancy so they can make sure that the system is still running if something needs to go down or a main breaks or something like that, and that happens, you know, they're monitoring that often.
Thank you. Yeah, that's 24/7 monitoring. It's real time. We get notified if a pump were to shut off when it's not supposed to, or a water tank level drops below where it should be. We get notified.
But as far as you know, there are no current plans to increase the security associated with these tanks.
We're always looking to make improvements. Every year we budget to make improvements.
Yeah,
So
and
we're always actively looking at.
And James, would you say that the operating system that Arizona Water Company has to manage our infrastructure and our system is at the same quality as every other utility
Yes.
in the area? So
Yeah.
all water utilities have a similar system and how they monitor and make sure that there's protection on the system. So I think that's about the time that we have for questions right now. I forgot to mention the reason why the slides are so tiny on your pieces of paper, because I try to keep space for notes. So that's what that is there for, just to let you know, but I will let Jeff continue now in the next section.
So what we're going to get into now is drought and supply shortages. So I think what everybody's probably looking forward to hearing about, not looking forward to, but want to know what's going on. So first I'm going to talk about drought in Arizona. The state of Arizona has had a drought emergency declaration since June of 1999. So we're approaching 23 years. Also, the governor has had an executive order in place since 2007 of the drought declaration. So we have been in a long-term drought, and essentially what that boils down to is we're getting less than average precipitation over the last 20 years. There is a monitoring technical committee that monitors and produces drought-related information. And I recommend check out, if you're interested in the drought, Arizona Department of Water Resource drought page. One of the things they put on that drought page is the map and the table that you see on the right. And each month they produce this map. I'll just tell you that if you look at the table, the dark red, if you move from right to left, the most serious drought condition is the darker color on the right. And as you get down to the yellow and white, those are less of a drought condition. This is as of early January, the drought status throughout the state. Essentially, in the white area there really is not a drought, and in the rest of the state, it's moderate. I can tell you that in months past, a lot of this map has been dark red. So this does change in Arizona depending on the conditions. It has been a wet winter so far in Arizona, so that has helped drought conditions in our state. So now I want to move into the Colorado River system. It's a little different. Colorado River system covers portions of 7 states that you see up there: Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. Parts of those states make up what's called the upper basin. The lower basin is made up of portions of California, Nevada, and Arizona. As you can see on this map, most of Arizona is within the Colorado River Basin, which is not the same for most of the other states. The Colorado River Basin as a whole has been in a drought for over 20 years. We've been experiencing in this last 20 years the driest conditions on record over the last 1,200 years. And what's caused that is dry soils, higher temperatures, and lower precipitation. And what that means is snowpack in the Rockies, there isn't as much of it, and it's not making its way into the Colorado River as surface runoff into Colorado River, which ultimately goes into Lake Powell, Lake Mead, and down to Mexico. And currently, Lake Powell and Lake Mead are at the lowest levels since they've been filled. And here I want to point that out. A lot of information on here. What I really want to point out are these 2 larger, we call them teacup diagrams. So Lake Mead and Lake Powell are river canyons that have been filled. So at the bottom of the river, it's narrower than at the top. So they create these teacups to kind of replicate how the lakes are formed. Narrower at the bottom and wider at the top. So Lake Powell right now is 24% full. It has 5.5 million acre-feet of storage. You look over to the right and you compare the table and you look to the far right, the maximum or the total amount of storage that could be in Lake Powell is over 23 million. Moving down to Lake Mead is 28% full right now. And had a little over 7 million acre-feet in it. And again, Lake Mead's total storage capacity is almost 26 million acre-feet. So essentially, those 2 reservoirs alone can store about 50 million acre-feet. Now you understand why we use the term acre-feet instead of gallons. I couldn't even tell you how many gallons that is, but million acre-feet and millions of acre-feet are much more manageable units to measure. So assume that most everyone has heard. If not, I'll break the news. The Colorado River system is in a state of hurt. There's been a lot of media coverage talking about the conditions and the shortages that have been declared, and it's real. So if you've heard it, it's real, and I'm I could make a 2-hour presentation on Colorado River, how they make the decisions of how to operate it, how all the agreements that are in place to manage the system. Not have time for that. I'm going to kind of cut to the chase and tell you what's happened recently. So the water master for the Colorado River is the Secretary of the Interior, and Secretary's agency, the Bureau of Reclamation, manages the day-to-day operation of the system. They do surface water modeling to project elevations of Lake Mead and Lake Powell, and they make operational decisions based on that model. Long story short, for 2022, at the end of 2021, they made the declaration based on the elevations of Powell and Mead that the tier 1 shortage was declared by reclamation. This was the first shortage declaration ever on the Colorado River system. I won't talk much about that. I'll talk about what happened at the end of 2022. That at that time, a tier 2A shortage was declared for the year 2023. And I'll talk a little bit about the shortages in the volume. So what a tier 2A shortage means is that Arizona is going to get reduced 592,000 acre feet throughout this year. That's 21% of our total Colorado River apportionment, which is 2.8 million. All of these cuts are being absorbed by the Central Arizona Project system. And due to existing law of the river, there are reductions that are being absorbed by Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico. California does not have to absorb any of these reductions at the current elevations. I'm sure somebody will ask me why, so I'll just tell you. Why? It's because in order to pass legislation in the 60s to fund and approve the Central Arizona Project in the United States Congress, the California delegation was not going to vote for it. So in order to get them to vote for it, Arizona had to agree to a junior priority status. That's the long and short of it. So when there's no shortage, it's not an issue. When there's a shortage, it's an issue. I will tell you that maybe some of you have heard of, there was some legislation passed in Arizona and more agreements in the states. It's called drought contingency planning. And as a result of those negotiations, California will take some reductions at a certain elevation of Lake Mead. We haven't gotten there yet, but if Lake Mead continues to fall, then California will have to take some reductions. So how do these tier 2A reductions impact the Central Arizona Project system? It eliminates what's called ag pool deliveries. It's for agricultural use. Also what's called non-Indian agricultural pool water. It's not agricultural water. I won't get into this, too complicated to try to describe right now. But the main takeaway here is that there are no reductions to what's called the M&I, municipal and industrial subcontract pool. Arizona water companies contract with CAP is M&I subcontract pool water. So according to the 2A shortages, this year we will not be cut back from our supplies. So again, our 6,285 acre feet subcontract water will, as of now, be available. That could change. So next slide. So this is the takeaway. I provide this in your packets, and if you get many of your copy probably. This just lists the elevations of Lake Mead on the left and the range of those elevations and what tier of shortage we have. So you can see tier 1, tier 2A, tier 2B, and tier 3. So if you go across to the yellow, one right there. You can see the 592,000 acre foot shortage reduction to Arizona. I'll just tell you that if we go to a tier 3 in the future, that shortage for Arizona is about 720,000 acre feet. So it gets larger. Thanks. So obviously, the system is challenged. So Bureau of Reclamation last year in June, Commissioner of Reclamation made an appearance in front of a congressional committee that said unprecedented action are needed to protect critical elevation and level in Lake Mead and Lake Powell. And what the commissioner said was that we need to conserve, leave in Lake Mead, not use an additional 2 to 4 million acre feet. Again, compare that to Arizona's total statewide apportionment of 2.8 million acre feet. So that is a lot of water that needs to be kept in Lake Mead. The commissioner gave the states a couple of months to try to work an arrangement out. And go to the next slide. They did not come to an agreement in August, and to date, they have not come to it. But there are activities primarily in Arizona that have been ongoing for a few years to conserve water and leave water in Lake Mead. In fact, I don't have it up there, but the estimates are that the amount of water that's been conserved and left in Lake Mead since 2014 has resulted in 80 feet of elevation of additional water that would have been not there if we didn't conserve water that much water. Can you go back to the question? So what Reclamation and the federal government is doing now is they are preparing what's called environmental impact statements, supplemental impact statement to revise the guidelines for operating Lake Mead and Lake Powell to try to deal with the drought conditions and the historically low reservoir elevation that will probably likely mean more cuts and additional hardship for the lower basin states, including Arizona. However, we do not know what that will amount to. They hope to have this impact statement done in mid-2023, and we'll see what happens when that gets finished. So this is the end of my portion. I'll be back up to answer questions after Luca is going to talk a little bit about our demand management.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. We are getting close to the end, so we only have a few more slides to go through, but regarding the Colorado River, before I forget, I did forget to include it in this PowerPoint. If you guys want any updates on the Colorado River, so Jeff is constantly monitoring what's going on with the Colorado River. On our Facebook page for More Precious Than Gold, we post updates as the Bureau of Reclamation posts things. So that's a credible source for you guys to follow our Facebook page and be able to see as we interpret what's going on in the river and how it affects our customers. We also have a page on the Arizona Water Company website that interprets what's going on with the river and how it affects our customers. So those are two ways that you can get information on what's going on as interpreted through Jeff. We thought it would be relevant at this point to also include what the deliveries in 2021 to Gold Canyon was on a monthly basis. So this graph shows how much raw CAP water was delivered to the golf courses compared to residential water use compared to commercial water. Commercial water use is by businesses, areas of recreation, stuff like that. So the blue bar is CAP water, the purple bar is residential, and the green is commercial. So we just thought it would be important to be able to do that on a monthly basis from 2021. Next slide, please. So since those are what the demands are, we thought it would be helpful for to highlight what we're doing to try to manage that demand. So James and his team are constantly looking for ways to make sure that our systems are working properly, and that means trying to stay ahead of leaks and fix them as soon as possible. We got a grant for $60,000 for equipment to be able to monitor our pipes and our pumps and fix this as soon as possible. Since about 1999, just in the Gold Canyon area, we've fixed over 530 slump systems. So we're trying to make sure that we're doing our part not to waste water and be efficient. Another way to manage demand, make sure that we're using our water to the best of our abilities is through water conservation programs or demand management programs. And my definition of what water conservation is just making sure that we're not wasting water and we're using water as efficiently as possible within the desired lifestyle that we want to live and quality of life. The difference between water conservation and demand management program is while water conservation and a program in water conservation just focuses on you guys as the end use, a demand management program also includes the utility. So it's keeping us accountable that in addition to asking you guys to not waste and be efficient, we're also making sure that we're not wasting, we're being efficient. So we've already been doing things for conservation to meet regulatory requirements, make sure that we're responsible water utilities. But in addition to that, we can go to the next slide. We launched a demand management program called Water More Precious Than Gold. If you've heard about it, that's amazing. If you haven't, welcome. Go ahead to the next slide. It launched on November 5th, 2022. Essentially, what you can expect from this resource is there's a Facebook page where you can find information on how you as a resident can take actions to conserve water. So every single month we pick a topic and we provide information on that, whether that's how to check for leaks in your home or in your irrigation system, how to make sure that your toilets aren't leaking or different topics. We also have a landing page with frequently asked questions. This basically explains what water more precious than gold is, what you can expect with it, how we got started on this, because it is so recent and new. And then we also, we did a pre-campaign survey. You might have gotten a ton of ads on Facebook to fill out a survey. But we were trying to do our best to gauge what the conservation ethic in Gold Canyon already was. So what people think conservation is, what information people are looking for when it comes to conservation. That way we understand what the need is, then we can correctly fill it. Go to the next slide, please. We also have videos that we're trying to put out to educate people on these types of topics. You saw the water journey video, but we also have a launch video that, again, just in a different media, explains what the demand management is and you can expect from it. We're also going to be doing a quarterly video series. So you'll be seeing a lot more of Jeff, but essentially every quarter we want to put out a video that explains the topic that's relevant to you guys related to water and conservation. The one that we're planning on launching by the end of March is all about rainwater. So what happens when it rains? Where does that water go? How does rainwater affect the aquifer, or how does it not affect the aquifer? So we want the Facebook page and the landing page to be an area where you guys can go to for accurate and up-to-date information on these topics. Quarterly presentations, you guys are in the first one. So we want to do these quarterly on different topics. We just thought water resources 101 would be a great first one. And then large landscape water audits. So we have a contract with a company where they will do large landscape water audits for HOA common areas. So essentially it's a resource where we pay for someone to come in, assess the common area, determine where leaks are, determine ways that the efficiency in the area can be improved. That way your common areas and your HOAs can be efficient and you guys can be doing what you can to conserve water in that sense as well. Go ahead to the next slide. And then I always like to end on the slide being very optimistic. I often get the question of, you know, how do I as a resident actually impact water use in the state? Is there any point to conserve water? So this is a graph done by the Department of Water Resources that shows over time as population has increased in the state of Arizona, the water use per person has actually decreased. What that means to me is that conservation actually works, and the actions that we take, even to save a gallon, 2, maybe 5 a day, has a big impact on the state. So conservation is amazing. If you want information, we're putting it out there for you guys. And then the last slide is email addresses for Jeff and I. So if you have questions, that we're now going to go into the question section, but if we don't get to your question today, or you think of something in the future, This is the general water conservation email, goes straight to me, and then we have a general water resources email address too. Even if it's a question of, hey, can you come talk for our HOA at a board meeting about a topic or something like that, we're open to it, we're excited to be here, so. Without further ado, look at that, I'm like half a minute early. We're gonna take questions, so, yes.
For the CAP canal, what percentage of the water is lost to evaporation?
Great to you. Yeah. Very good to work at the.
Yeah, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, so my name is Terry Sue Rossi. I'm the Vice President of Water Resources for Arizona Water Company. Like Jeff, I've been in the business a long time. We're practically the same age. We've known each other throughout our careers. One of the places I worked was at the Central Arizona Project. I've been for 20 years. And the answer to your question is there's about 75,000 acre feet of losses along the system each year across the 1.6 million acre feet of water. So it's actually a very small percentage.
Yeah, sure.
What would the process be to transform salt water to fresh water? If we look at that as too much, too expensive.
Oh, for desalination.
Huge topic, but are you talking about seawater or are you talking about highly saline water in Arizona?
Like seawater.
Yeah,
Huge body there.
there are, I did a little research on this, there are thousands of desalination plants in the world. And there are several hundred in the United States. They're all generally pretty small, but that is being explored in a couple of different venues. There's the minute 323, basically Arizona working with the Mexican government is looking at studying desalination opportunities in the Sea of Cortez. There is a private entity out of Israel that just came into Arizona and through the Water Infrastructure Financing Authority, WIFA, has proposed a desalination plant in Mexico that would pipe water up and put it into the CAP canal. Grandiose plans looking at up to a million acre feet. So those things are in the works. I will just tell you, they are very long term projects and they are very expensive, billions of dollars with high operational costs.
Sounds like the CAP.
Yes. But yes, that ties in, I'll just take another step with that question is that part of the solution for offsetting losses on and shortages of Colorado River system is augmenting, we call it augmentation, finding other supplies to make up for the losses that we're going to be encountering. So that's going on at various levels, federally and state. So believe me, there are people working on it.
Arizona Water Company has a similar philosophy. So we believe that diversifying our water supply portfolio is a very important part of our entire water resource strategy. So as we heard today, we have CAP water, we have groundwater, we have effluent. We are also working with the Salt River Project to modify Bartlett Dam, which will bring some additional water that's not being used right now in the Verde system into potentially into our control as well. And so we're constantly looking for water supplies in order to diversify the portfolio.
Awesome. I saw a gentleman with the orange pattern.
This question may be small potatoes to what you're talking about. However, in our community in Mountain Brook, two homes have had the bottom of their water meter blow out and leak water for a period of time. Is that a common problem?
That's a James question.
It happens.
Speak loud enough.
It happens from time to time. We do have a meter change out program where we routinely go through, try to replace meters before they fail, but we may not catch all of them before they fail.
The concern is that the onus seems to fall on the property owner, that the meter, the water keeps going. And instead of the fact that the water meter has failed and the water's gone, but we didn't use it.
No, we always work with our customers in a situation like that. If we thought the water had gone through the meter, we would give them a credit or wouldn't bill them for that use. We'll look back at their historic use and typically base a credit on that. And here's what you typically would have used this month. We're not going to bill you for anything.
Good question. Yes. Yeah.
So for the groundwater bottom system, you know, I've talked about this 100-year supply, but what happens after 100 years or does the model show an exponential decline, smooth decline, or the drought? What happens with the model and based down? What happens if it goes along further than 1,000 feet? Does it just dry up or is it really fast decline? What's happening at that time?
Well, a few questions there. I'll try to get to each one. So first of all, the 1,000-foot depth that I referenced before in the Phoenix AMA is the depth of water can go down to after 100 years of pumping. It doesn't mean that there isn't additional water. Some of the aquifer depth in the Chandler area is over 10,000 feet. So there's still plenty of aquifer in some portions in the center of the basin. As you get closer to the mountains, like you are here, there's generally less aquifer available. You might be down to hundreds of feet. But then you go out to the center of the basin, it's can be over 10,000 feet. So I wouldn't, it doesn't necessarily dry up, but in relation to the model, if the model shows that you go below 1,000 feet, you will not get the certificate of insured water supply that would allow the developer to build. I will just, since somebody brought up the superstition distance, if you go to the south and east here, the depth to bedrock or aquifer thickness increases. So it gets deeper, so there's more water potentially available. But whenever the development happens in superstition district, if they're going to rely on groundwater, whatever portion that is, they will have to do the model. Was there anything, did I miss anything? Go.
I think part of what you asked, what happened in year 100? And
That's my second part. So you answer a lot of questions. Appreciate it.
so one of the things, because we only have a certain amount of time, that Jeff didn't go into a lot of detail on, was something called consistency with the management goal. So that's one of the criteria you have to meet to get an assured water supply determination. And what that means, there's a lot to that, but what it means is that you have to replace all the groundwater that you use. So the modeling has to show that there is physically available groundwater for 100 years. And then every acre foot of groundwater that we use and deliver to our customers has to then be replenished by something called the Central Area Groundwater Replenishing District. And it has to be replenished in the area, as close to the area where the pumping actually occurs. So it would be done in the same locations where we're doing the recharge. And we talked a little bit about these irrigation districts. And I wanted to clarify that the recharge is not the water percolating from the surface down into the ground. That's sort of an extra bonus. The actual recharge is that they left the groundwater in the ground to begin with. So normally in a recharge project, you would apply the water and it would percolate down the ground, and then you would add a new foot. A groundwater savings facility, which is what these irrigation districts are, leave the water where it was. And so that's the water that we're entitled to pump. In addition to that, because the surface water is being applied to the land, roughly a third of that water percolates down to the ground. So you actually is not only a 1-for-1, it is more than a 1-for-1.
Yes.
Is there, I'm sure that there is, I'm sure 90% of the people in this room know this. Is there a priority order if the water becomes so scarce that it can't be all provided? Who loses it first?
Well, are you talking about CAP water?
I'm talking about the golf courses are using an inordinate amount of water. Residences are using much less water. I'm talking about those divisions.
Oh, so like in relation to Gold Canyon, like if there is a reduction in the CAP, where would that reduction come from?
The water isn't there.
Mhm.
If water has to be,
Let's start with Colorado. Okay, so let's say we have to reduce the way that the commissioner of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation is described. And they come out in June this year and say, we're gonna reduce the CAP by 50%. And, or whatever the number is, let's say we have to cut our application by 50%. So then we will take action to in fact reduce that water by 50%. We are working with the golf courses right now and preparing them for that reality. The customers, the potable customers will be, and actually both the golf courses and the potable customers will be entitled to some, in the last 20 some odd years, we've been storing unused Colorado River water underground through the Arizona Water Banking Authority and other organizations that I work for. And that water was stored there for the very purpose of backfilling shortages on the Colorado River, it's the purpose of the Arizona Water Banking Authority. And so as we move into that period, we will be relying on the water bank to backfill some of the reductions. If the reductions then exceed the insurance policy, basically that the water bank is, then we will be taking other actions like asking people to reduce, and the golf courses will be asked to reduce their demands. We do have curtailment policies in place, and so essentially non-essential uses are cut off first, and then from there it moves to the highest priority use are the residential. So those from non-essential use down to the residential customers. Keep in mind that even if our CAP allocation were reduced entirely, there is sufficient groundwater in this area to meet the demands of our customers for many years to come. So I think James pointed out that 16 million gallons per day of capacity. So even without the CAP water, we would be able to meet the total demand of customers.
Is many 10 years or 50 years?
So aquifers are best. We might have to drill a new well, we need to deepen a new well, and we keep track of all that. We're constantly in the process of building new infrastructure. So I do not think that you need to be concerned that we do not have water available even within the next. We're not going to run out of water even within the next 100 years.
Thank you.
Yes. So I read an article the other day that said that the Rio Verde issue, the truckers are now coming down to Apache Junction to truck water all the way up. Just sad for them. Is that coming from our water system? And then I guess the secondary piece of that question is, is there at all engaged with similar outcomes because of building?
So I think the trucking question is.
So. None. I'm not aware of any trucks showing up at this time. They asked for help and we offered. We said, well, this is a resource we have, it's available. There's limitations on that water salesman that it would not supply all of their demand. It was just something offered that we needed to help assist them.
Explain what it would actually take so they understand how difficult it is to get water out of the stand.
I remember the flow rate. The flow rate on the sandpipe is something like 50 gallons a minute. If they had trucks lined up there back to back all day long, I don't know that they would get half of the water that they need. And the issue that they have is different.
I can talk about that. So about question whether it could happen here. So what happened, lot splits is what happened up in Rio Verde. They did not subdivide and therefore have to get an assured water supply. And so nobody ever assessed whether there was 100-year supply available. So if that is a loophole in the real estate laws that allow to subdivide, some of you maybe have taken advantage of that, I don't know, but if a subdivision is created, they're gonna have to comply with the assured water supply requirements.
Yeah, the other thing that's going on is that entire community is dependent upon a standpipe that is providing water to them from the city of Scottsdale. The city of Scottsdale has expressed concerns about that community doing that for many, many years. And so finally, the city of Scottsville said, we are shutting the standpipe down, gave them ample time to find an alternative supply. There is a water utility just like us nearby called F4. And so far that community has essentially been unwilling to pay the cost to have the water provided to the community. So as long as we make good decisions, so long as we understand that it costs money to provide water, the water we need, but the cost to drill the wells and the electric and all that, and pipes to come to the house cost money. These are people who made a decision to buy homes. They bought homes that were less expensive than the homes that you're buying, because those homes were not provided with adequate water infrastructure and their homes. There probably are some homes in the Apache Junction area that are not relying on the water system, that are relying on standpipe. That's why we have a standpipe. But our standpipe is maintained. It comes from wells that are used to provide our potable demands as well. And so it's protected by the same rigorous standards that we have to deliver water to our customers.
Thank you.
I do.
I have, two questions that are related. Number one, I could not see where your company's service area was on your PowerPoint map. So does it include the superficial area, or at least this northern part of it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
We all want to answer. There is a portion that is within our CCNN, but I think for the north and east, it wouldn't be developed for several years. I mean, the part that's currently under development is part of the city of the Apache Junction Water District.
So we all see a lot of development happening around us, and it's just going to continue to happen. So what I'm interested in, and I guess most people in this room are interested in, is how much water do you have? You have a service area that's been defined. You have a finite amount of water. How many more residential is provide water for?
So the two-part question, I'll have the answer part of it. As far as physically bringing the water to the table, so not only do they need to prove that church supply, when they come to us and they say, okay, we want to build, on this 50-acre parcel over here. Say, okay, we look at the water demand, and they have to bring that to the table. So, if they have 1,000 gallon a minute demand, they have to drill a well. If it requires a main extension to get to that development, they have to pay for that main extension. So they're paying for and providing all of the facilities that are required to serve that project.
But if they drill well, there's some down in Europe also. So you guys are stuck in those.
So why don't you explain how that works? The subdivision, we require them.
Yes, it wouldn't be their well if they're in our certificated area. They would fund the well. We would drill it. We would own it. We would maintain it. We would provide the water.
Yeah, so it'd be essentially an area that we would now consider within our water demands and our water production and water use.
So you don't know what your capacity.
No, we do. James.
Well, so sorry.
Capacity, do you mean capacity to pump, or how much water is available in this area that we have access to as there?
Well, you could tell me what that means, but how I would like to translate it as to how many more homes that will supply.
So we currently have a capacity of 60 million gallons a day. Our peak demand in the summertime at its worst is about 13. So we have backup supply for the current customers. When a developer comes in, wants to add customers, they have to bring additional supply so that we always maintain a backup, always maintain sufficient physical supplies. And then the legal part.
Yeah, so I'll let Terry see this.
So John and I have a little story about this. So we applied for what they call physical availability determination. What that is this huge hydrologic study that determines how much groundwater is physically available for us to use inside of our CCN above 1,000 feet. And Jeff happened to be on the regulatory side and we were going through this and I was prepared to walk. So we just got that pad approved, called pad, this availability determination. And it was approved, I'm gonna say in early 2022. Was that, yeah, I think it was. And it was approved for 16,000 additional acre feet above and beyond our, what we call our existing and committed demand, which is roughly 9,000 acre feet. So our demands aren't there. What are our demands? About 7,000 acre feet? What are we? I'm sorry. Operator. So we have, if you took that entire volume, added them up, that's about 25,000 acre feet of groundwater physically available. That's not even our CAP house. I'll put the CAP allocation on top of that, that's 6,255 acre feet. So let's just say in round numbers, 30,000 acre feet. And in your community, there are roughly 4 homes to an acre foot. So multiply 4 times 30,000, and that can give you a perspective on how many homes that volume of water can serve. And we are nowhere near that. That's the connection.
We're getting there fast.
The connections in the system are roughly what, 23,000?
23,000 for it's about 20, a little over 21,000 here in
The entire state.
Apache Junction, Gold Canyon.
Yeah, and again, we want to emphasize that's 2,000 feet, right? So there's groundwater below that in parts of the aquifer. And then it also doesn't include other supplies that we are going to be acquiring and the development of effluent from all the people that will be moving here. So all these people who live here or will live here will produce effluent, and that water will become available to use also. And that's roughly about 1/3 of the demand. So when you start to look at the different pieces and add them up, there really is a significant volume of water that's available. Now, whether or not that's what, as a community, people want to do is that is a decision communities make. That is not a decision of water utilities. What we do is we make your dreams come true. Whatever you want, we are going to provide water to meet those needs.
That's about that dog live in that development that has been shared supply. That are living on split lot areas. And we provide our water. There's no assurance there, or how does that work?
So we have an obligation to serve all of our customers. So you live in an area where you perhaps when it wasn't subdivided, maybe you didn't have a certificate of assured water supply, and you're a water. I don't know. But we have an obligation to serve all of the customers in our service area. And we will do that. We will meet that obligation. You're required by that.
Thank you. So many questions. We'll go back there.
Yeah, questions around, so, you said it was, wet. You had kind of wet summer from monsoon again, and dry one. It flood, you see it on TV, where's that flood water? I mean, some of it's gonna go around, but some of it's like, where's it go? Right?
So I'm going to say, to get that question answered, that's gonna be part of our video series. So we're gonna highlight where the water goes when it rains in Gold Canyon and all of that, just to be conscious of time, because that is an excellent question. We're gonna have 4 videos.
Okay.
Just talking about that. Also plug to follow our Facebook page. Yeah, give a quick answer.
A lot of rainwater does run off and run away, and then a lot is lost to evaporation and transpiration. Some of it does get into the ground, into the bottom. The better source of recharging off for snowmelt because it's more gradual. So, yeah, large up to 90%, 95% is sometimes lost after rain because it runs off and goes away. If you capture it, you can recharge it.
Well, how you can do that? Yes, back there.
be kind of curious to know how much water is well water that we get in our Gold Canyon specifically. Is it mostly or?
So what is served to residential and commercial uses comes from underground, but it is a combination of recovered CAP water and native groundwater, but it comes from the ground. And I forgot we had the totals on the pie chart. I wanna,
Don't even touch it.
have it again. Great, go back.
That. Oh, but that doesn't.
Yeah, well, yeah, those cut the cost. So 1,872 acre-feet was delivered to homes and businesses in the potable system in 2021.
The reason I asked that is because I noticed there's a difference. I've had my own well, and there's a difference in the water, at least calcium is built up and that sort of stuff. Arizona water versus well waters. Is there, I mean, I don't know, is there a difference?
All wells are different, all wells have different water quality, and they can be relatively close and have significantly different water quality.
Well, I think another important thing to point out is that our wells for Gold Canyon are not necessarily in Gold Canyon,
True. Yeah.
right? They're west of Gold Canyon. So if you have a well in Gold Canyon, then yeah, the Arizona Water Company well is not nearby because of analyses and things like that. So, okay, yes.
Yeah, just quick question about conservation. Terry Sue, this is Mike Wicker, Champaign, like talking about what mine. Yeah. We threw out some rough numbers that about 50% of our water comes from CAP to service this area. And we threw out a scenario, what happens if we lose 50% of that water? Can we conserve as residents here? Can we conserve our way out of that bear trap? Or is that why you're asking for us to attend these sessions and talk to you, that we really can conserve our way into success if there's a shortage?
No, no. So water conservation is a piece of the puzzle. So we talked about one of our strategies is a diverse water supply portfolio. So that when one water supply is not available, we can tap a different water. And then conservation, the idea is we're going to have a diverse supply of water. So this will give you a perspective on where Jeff and I are at. It's just like the retirement savings, right? So you're going to have all these different sources of supply for your money. You're going to have your social security. You're going to have your 401k. If you're lucky, you're going to have a pension. You're going to have your savings. You know, you're going to have all these different things. And sometimes your retirement portfolio, your not your pension or your social security doesn't do so well, right? So you're not going to take money out of your 401k now, but you are going to take money out of your pension. So, or you're going to do what? You're going to cut back. You're not going to use as much of your money in a particular year. If you look at water resources like you would your own finances, it's really the same principle. So we expect to have a diverse water supply portfolio, just like you expect to have a diverse supply of investments. And then we expect to use all of those water supplies wisely. We're not asking you to sacrifice. We are not asking you to give up the beauty of your community. This is a lovely community. I would love to be able to afford for this community. And we are not asking the community to not be Gold Canyon. What we are asking the community to do is to use the water we provide as efficiently as possible. And we are asking ourselves to do the same thing, just like what Erica said. All of us need to use the water wisely. We do not need to forego having the kind of quality of life that we have. We just simply need to use the water, all the sources we have, wisely and responsibly.
Such a good answer. I love that. Right there.
Besides desalination, what are some other out of the box avenues that we use to replenish the basin?
So right now we are in discussions with the Saltwater Project along with a lot of other entities to raise a modified to modify Bartlett dams. Who knows where Bartlett dams? So it's one of the three SRP reservoirs. If you're not familiar with this department. So we're in the process of determining how much we can raise that dam in order to capture more rainfall and snow melt in the system they have historically. And so that's one of the projects that we're working on. Another thing that we're working on is developing micro resources in all of our communities. And that would also include us going into the wastewater business and creating collections of for our customers. So those are a couple of examples. There are more exotic examples, like there are leases on Colorado. I want to jump on.
Well, real quick, I just want to say it is 7:30, so if we do need to leave, that's okay. The presentation will be emailing out, so we have your email address.
Okay.
Send you a copy.
We really need to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we need to. Sorry.
We've only got to 7:30. So.
Okay,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
thank you all for attending.
The Facebook page, right? And it's called
Water work breakfasting, right?
it's.